Stories from the supermarket. First up, we're visiting the freezer aisle.
Pull up a chair, America. Sit right down there, America. Swanson's cooking just for you.
So the question is, how did TV dinners change the world? I'm joined now by Jeff Swiston. He's author of TV Dinners Unboxed, The Hot History of Frozen Meals. Jeff, welcome to Milk Street.
Wow, what a pleasure. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
There were a number of things going on sort of mid-20th century that led up to this invention of and surge in TV dinners. What were some of the things going on in the culture at the time?
Yeah, macro level, you had the baby boom, you had prosperity, all those things that we sort of note about the 50s. I really like discovering through the research that, we sort of have romanticized and idealized the 1950s as sort of happy days and all that stuff. But you know what? People were stressed. There was the Cold War. There was the keeping up with the Joneses. And what really the TV dinner hit upon was people not only were stressed, they were time pressed. And the TV dinner promised right out of the gate and continues to be speed, ease, and convenience. And so that's what, largely Americans, but other chunks of the world glommed onto. Here was this thing that could be ready in 30 minutes, 3 different chunks of food, a meat, a couple of vegetables. And people were astounded by the science of it, that 3 different things could heat up to the same temperature, have the same consistency, and no fuss, no muss.
With Swanson TV turkey dinners, you just heat and you serve big and hearty slices of moist, tender Swanson turkey with grand giblet gravy and special cornbread dressing and fluffy whipped sweet potatoes with golden Swanson butter.
Mother Murphy, lucky me. My wife uses Swanson TV turkey dinners.
Yeah, and there's a direct line back to the late 19th century when there was a movement to get women out of the kitchen by having sort of community kitchens that would produce food. And women, I guess in your research, found that they were spending 4 hours per day cooking food and cleaning up. So that was a consistent problem for a very long time, which this would evidently solve. Also, you also mentioned, this is fascinating, food was 3 times more expensive than it is today. And so cost was also a factor, right?
It definitely was, but I was astounded by that too, Chris, that roughly when Swanson sort of hit, and they were, of course, the big one, the Coke of the industry, so to speak, and then you had Banquet that was the Pepsi of the industry, but 98 cents was roughly the pricing around the mid-50s when Swanson was really at its height, selling about, within 2 years of production, selling 25 million of these things a year. And if you actually did the inflation check on that, which I did, it would put these dinners at around $11 equivalent in 1954, 55. But if you go and buy a Swanson TV dinner today, it's about a third of that or half that. So it was really, really more expensive. And so people were willing to pay for the convenience of it.
In 1942, you report on a Seagram's ad that was futuristic, talking about what was coming down the road. Deluxe service for tomorrow's homes, cook-to-order meals brought right to the door, piping hot on time, ordered a day ahead for weekly menus, et cetera, et cetera. So although the TV dinner is slightly different than this, that idea of having meals piping hot, easily prepared, and you could choose. I think choice also was a big thing here, right? If you could choose among lots of different things, that was actually predicted right during the Second World War.
I love that campaign. I used to work on Madison Avenue for a big agency, and I came across that campaign. So Seagram's did this. It was, to sell their liquor, but it was predicting the future from 1942. And my God, were they accurate? They got the cell phone, they got plant-based products that would substitute meat. They hit all on that. Yeah, and they hit on this one. But Chris, you mentioned choice, and TV dinners did that. TV dinners introduced much of America to Asian food, specifically, Swanson's take on Chinese food. But we saw that through the 60s too. The Mexican dishes, they had to temper the hotness of traditional Mexican food so it conformed or was fine with American palates at the time. But really, TV dinners were the ones that introduced international cuisine to the majority of the country.
Well, yeah, some version of international cuisine, but I take your point.
No, I'm being generous in my description.
Very
here.
generous.
They take you away from the everyday to a world where the food makes you want to stay.
Those real sensational
International frozen dinners from Swanson.
So lots of other companies started doing this. How did Swanson's just beat the competition because they got out there first in mass production? Is that what happened?
I think it was a couple of things. One, Swanson had been kind of a creamery or meat supplier. They already had like kind of the distribution contracts. And I believe they had it initially, like you could make all the jokes you want about TV dinners overall, and I'm pretty sure I've heard them all. But back then, when you look at what they were producing, it wasn't this sort of really mass-produced stuff. It almost looked like an artisan meal. The meat looked like it had been hand-carved. So there was quality to it as well. But really, they could get out because they had distribution. And for the first year, they sold something like, 5,000 or 30,000 units, and they were encouraged. The next year, they sold 10 million. The year following, 25 million. And literally, this is a company that it was doing about 70 million in sales back then, which was, very respectable across all of their different businesses. But Campbell saw them and bought them in 1955 in an all-stock deal. They just went, the TV dinner is the future, and, Campbell's owned them for decades.
So if someone hired you today to sell the concept of an updated TV dinner, however you want to package that, how would you go about selling it?
So if you handed me the brief today and said, we've got a new product, we really want to break out, we want to hit the same sort of numbers that Swanson had at the beginning, you got to hit on a few things. I think this is a fist. This is 5 fingers coming together, and I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head, but it's got to be, you got to speak to the healthy ingredients. You got to speak to the exotic nature that you couldn't prepare this at home by yourself, kind of like the meal kit positioning. You're not going to have dishes. You're going to have it in a short period of time, and it's going to taste good. That would be, the marketing fist on that product. That's the way I would approach it.
You'd have to package it in a way that feels upscale and exciting, et cetera.
Yeah, really, it's funny. ConAgra, the ConAgra CEO said you cannot diminish the naming of a product, the importance of it, and the packaging of it. And the brand 𝔻𝕚𝕟 that came out in the 80s. I love 𝔻𝕚𝕟. My mom went back to work in the 80s. I was just finishing high school. She was a fantastic cook. And all of a sudden she was gone, right? She was back in the workforce, and our freezer was full of 𝔻𝕚𝕟s. And, to feed my brother and I, the 2 left at home. But 𝔻𝕚𝕟 at the time was selling for like $12. And I think you were paying about 5 out of the $12 for the plate. It was like a Corelle plate that you would buy almost like for picnics. It was of that quality, but reusable.
Le candlelight, le musique, le flowers, le menu. Oh, le menu. Le breast of chicken parmigiana, succulent and tender with zesty tomato sauce and mozzarella.
They had sirloin tip one, was one of the entrees. They were absolutely fantastic. But it also highlighted, a great lament with TV dinner aficionados around the time the microwave came in. People really thought that they went downhill with the microwave, and for obvious reasons, that things didn't heat to the same consistency. People wanted to put their aluminum one in the oven for the 30 minutes because it really came out better. It was better tasting, better consistency versus the zapping that we all did.
Well, there's another answer for that, which is that it's 30 minutes of cocktail hour.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Put it in the oven, you got 30 minutes for your cocktail. Maybe that helps organize your evening. Jeff, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great fun for me too. Cheers.